I cannot wait until I make a video where I just do the outtakes of Elder Scrolls lore, because I mess up so many times and I think you guys would love it. But welcome back to Elder Scrolls lore. Today, before we begin, I'd like to make a shout out to the Discord chat. Feel free to join in the link in the description below or in the channel header, as well as Aries' channel. He provides and produces really good music and high quality music. I definitely recommend you check out his channel. And today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the Skyrim population density. I had a few people come forward and say that Skyrim's population should be a little bit higher from the last Elder Scrolls lore video. So this is going to be me pretty much explaining my thoughts and explaining why I think that the population should remain at 3 million. I respect everyone else's judgment and opinions on this, obviously, but so far I cannot realistically see anything being higher than 3 million. Obviously there is room to grow, but at the current moment, I cannot see it being higher than 3 million. So this video will be here to describe why, and I hope you guys enjoy. Obviously we're going to have to scale things up to a degree because things were scaled down in Skyrim sense. We don't get to see Markarth would have has like a population of like maybe 50 at most, and that's including, you know, at least some guards, maybe more, right? So we have to scale things up because it's really unrealistic to see that, or to think that Markarth would have like only a population of roughly 50 people. So it makes sense that we're going to scale this up by a large amount, right? So basically I judge things of how they were based off of what their region looked like and how well they'd be able to cultivate the land and how well that land would be able to be used to support their population. Now, I have some populations that might seem a little unrealistic, some that might seem pretty realistic, but you got to remember that for the unrealistic populations, it's assumed that the rest of Skyrim, in a sense, the rest of the holds, are going to be able to fuel their population as well, be able to commence with trading and get some food to the other holds. So we're going to start with the Reach, and the Reach, obviously the capital is Markarth, and I agreed. I concluded that 200,000 as a population of the capital would be acceptable, with Karthwasten being at 5,000, and then the two orc strongholds of Dushinka Yal and Mor Khazgor being at 1,000 apiece, so it'd be 2,000 total with those. I thought that was pretty understandable, and now with Markarth, the terrain is mostly mountainous, so the land that's going to be able to be cultivated is relatively limited, so it's assumed that they're going to be most likely trading with maybe Whiterun or Falkreath to get more food to their areas, because the mountains are going to limit the amount of food you can actually produce in an area. So I guess going in, we're going to go in a relative order here. We have Falkreath. Now, Falkreath obviously had Helgen, but Helgen was destroyed in the Dragon Crisis, so I think that did something to the population a little bit. It might have dispersed some people that normally wouldn't have been dispersed. Now, Falkreath is a wooded terrain and has a lot of land that could be cultivated or has the potential to be cultivated. So I would say Falkreath, being even a small hold, would have a population of roughly 100,000 in terms of the city, and that I think it seems pretty realistic overall for just Falkreath alone. Now, Whiterun is I obviously has the biggest hold out of everybody in Skyrim, and I would say that Whiterun alone has a population of probably 1 million people. It being the center of Skyrim and trading, it also has the flattest land to be cultivated and would be able to produce the most food out of everybody. And as for Rorikstead and Riverwood, I also have as 5,000 because 5,000 apiece, I should say, because I can't see villages having that many people to rival anything else. So going into Harfinger, we have Solitude, and I have Solitude, and I thought I was being very generous with this, and I only said it because it was the capital of Skyrim for the Empire, and Solitude I have at 300,000 people, and Dragon's Watch I have 6,000 people, and the only reason I say 6,000 for Dragon's Watch and the rest of the villages only have at 5,000 is because it's the capital province of Skyrim. Now, I thought I was being pretty generous there, and Skyrim is a sort of mountain. It's a weird terrain where you have mountains, you have some flat land, but you also have marshlands as well, so it's a bit hard to judge how well that land can be cultivated, and it's most likely that they're going to have to get stuff from Whiterun as well. Now, Hjalmark is very marshy, it's swampy, so the land that's going to be able to be cultivated there is relatively low. Now, that being said, the poor prosperity of Morthal would mean that they're not going to have too many people there, so the lands they have are most likely going to be able to support their own population. So I only have Morthal at 50,000 people, And this is due to the terrain, and that's also due to the relative poor prosperity of the holding. So the Pale, we have Dawnstar, and that's the only settlement in the Pale. And now I had this a bit higher, but at the same time it's also a tundra, and the land that can be cultivated in a tundra is relatively low. And so I have Dawnstar at 100,000, and I gave it a bit more of a boost because it has a port. So a port city would be able to hold a bit more people and have more prosperity to it, so it's going to attract more people. But the land that's going to be able to be cultivated there is going to be relatively low, and so they're going to have to support that via trade. Winterhold, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. I even was tempted to put 0 for Winterhold, or put like 100, but I put Winterhold at 10,000. I think a majority, I think that's a pretty acceptable number. For most of the city did collapse, so I think that 10,000 is a justifiable number here. And overall, I think Winterhold would have that. I don't see anything wrong with that idea. It's the smallest settlement we'll have out of everything here. So going into Eastmarch, I have Windhelm at 300,000, and I was kind of generous with that as well. With Windhelm, I believe that the fact that it's in the tundra, it would be pretty hard to cultivate some land, but we do see a lot of farms up there as well in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, so it's understandable that they might, and it was the capital of old Skyrim as well, so I can see it boasting a bigger population than normal. Kynes Grove I have at 5,000, and Narzal Bur I have at 1,000 as well. It's an Orc stronghold, so I can see Windhelm supporting this as well. They have the means, and the terrain is weird. You have a mixture of tundra, you have a mixture of wooded areas and flatlands, and you also have the sulfur pits, and the sulfur pits are, I would say, majority of that hold, so it's understandable that the most of the population is going to be centered in the northern area where you have Windhelm and Kynes Grove. Now lastly, we have the Rift, and now the Rift I had a hard time judging, and so I have it 500,000 for Riften as the population of the city. Shore, Stone, and Iverstead I have 5,000 apiece, and Largash Bur I have at 1,000. Now for Riften's terrain, you have a lot of flatland, you have a bit of a mountainous area, as well as you also have forested area, but that is a lot of room to be cultivated, and it's a lot of room to have a potential growth. And I see Riften, the Rift, Falkreath, and Whiterun being the producers of food for at least 3/4 of the year, at most 3/4 of the year, because it will eventually get cold for that area for one season. So I can see them being able to produce food for most of the year, right? And I believe that it's going to be able to support the rest of the populations that are north. So total in each settlement and city, we have 2.6 million, right? Which is completely understandable, but at the same time, that leaves another 400,000 to be in farms, hamlets, mines, etc., all the other things that surround the holdings, and I think that is very justifiable, where you're going to have a majority of those people there, or even you're going to have those people that are in the cities living off those farms and living off those areas that are going to be traveling from the city to the farms to support their own stuff, because you do see a lot, especially I'm just thinking of Windhelm right off the bat here. You have a lot of farmers that have farms outside of Windhelm that actually live in the farmhouse, but most of the day they can spend it in Windhelm if they wanted to. It's not that far of a journey. Obviously scale things up and maybe a couple hours to get there, but that being said, I think it's very understandable to have 400,000 in the countryside doing what they want, and that's permanently residing there. That isn't people coming from the cities coming out and to cultivate their own lands. So I think that's justifiable, and I think that works. And I guess using another example, Whiterun, the clan Battleborn lives in the city of Whiterun, and yet they have farms outside of Whiterun, right? So they live in the city, yet they have farms. So I think that's understandable. 400,000 living out there, maybe a little bit more. I can see a little bit room for growth there, but overall, I agree with my own decision here. Maybe there's less people in the cities and maybe a little bit more people living in the countryside. These are rough estimates, so obviously I have to play a lot of things by ear here. I have to estimate it off the best of my ability. So a lot of people thought that the population should be higher, and I got a lot of people saying, well, the population should be at least 6 million, or it should be at least 7 million or 8 million, right? And looking at historical counterparts, I cannot see it. And historical counterparts to, I think, the Nords would be the Scandinavian countries. And so, just to get started, I couldn't find any information on Finland at this time, but we have the Kingdom of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway here. And this is 1000 CE or AD, doesn't matter however you interpret this. So basically, from 1000 CE to 12,000 CE, the populations of those three countries, of those three kingdoms, stayed relatively the same. You had Denmark at 500,000 people, Sweden at 400,000 people, and Norway at 200,000 people, with a total of 1.1 million. So I thought with Skyrim, I was being relatively generous there. Now, it wouldn't even be till 1500 where the populations actually started to change at a little bit to a dramatic amount here. So in Denmark, we have 600,000, Sweden, we have 650,000, and then in Norway, we have 300,000. That's 500 years it took for the population to grow at least by 100,000. And that's in this kind of, it's a similar climate they're in. So I think that is justifiable in terms of where I'm at and where I'm looking at things. There really isn't a Roman equivalent to Skyrim, because they didn't really conquer a tundra land or an area that has that sort of similar climate. I was debating on whether or not to use Gaul, but even Gaul I would consider being more similar to that of Falkreath or the Rift. So I couldn't really justify using that as an example. So I went and found the Norse kingdoms of the medieval period, and I think that works out very well as a good example for a real life counterpart. So I don't know what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree still? Do you think that the population should be relatively higher? Let me know in the comments below or in the Discord chat. I am willing to hear everything. I'd love to have a debate in the comments or in the Discord chat. Obviously, this is a matter of my opinion and my own interpretation, so obviously people are going to think differently than I. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. As always, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all around. Peace.